Hi everybody, I'm Jack and this is Raw Tropical Living. Thanks for joining me today. Another beautiful day here on the mountain. Thought I'd come out here on the porch and do this one today so I could sit down and get comfortable. We might talk a while here. As you can see from the title, this is about just kind of my story on this raw vegan lifestyle and alcohol, because people have asked me, and sometimes it comes more than others, probably when there's new people following me or whatever. But anyhow, haven't talked about this subject in a while, so I just thought I would give my story on it for people that are new to it. I've actually done a video on my drinking story, and I've talked about drinking a lot, but I just thought I'd put it in perspective and instead of just kind of keep throwing it out there about how I used to drink heavy for people that may not have been following me all that long. So anyway, if you're not subscribed to the channel, I do videos every day on raw veganism, plant-based, food, health, philosophy, just mindfulness, just anything that leads us to a healthier lifestyle. So if you would, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, please. And when you hit it, click on the little bell and check send notifications so you'll stay subscribed to the channel. Recently I've gotten a few, just here and there. It just kind of comes in waves, whatever, asking me either about my drinking in the past or something to the effect of, kind of reaching out, looking for help on how to stop in their own thing. So I thought it would be good to go ahead and update and kind of clarify like where I'm coming from on this thing. I've mentioned before, I was a heavy drinker. I was a drunk for 30 years. Now, and I'll get into kind of the whys and what fors and what later. I qualified myself as a drunk and not an alcoholic. And that's why I don't get into giving a whole lot of advice. And that's why I don't even get into talking about it in specifics a lot, because that's a touchy subject. The whole subject is touchy to people. And that particular subject, you have people that have certain thoughts on the subject of alcohol addiction. And you have certain people that are very closed off and they're thinking about it, how you deal with it and whatever. Like I say, the reason I distinguish myself is not because, and I've had people tell me, oh, you're just you, and they hear my story and they, oh yeah, you're fooling yourself by saying you weren't an alcoholic. And I claim being a drunk instead. Well, the reason I say that is I'm just kind of giving respect, giving props to the actual the community out there that is addicted to alcohol, that are alcoholics, because I do feel like that's an illness. And I feel like when people actually have alcoholism, it can be a real struggle. And it's not always just a matter, it's generally when someone's an alcoholic, it's generally not a matter of just saying, okay, yeah, I'm not going to drink anymore. And that was the distinguishing thing for me, is like, I just decided, people ask me how, what, where, when, and how'd you do it, what method, blah, blah, blah. I just had enough and I had walked away. My drinking habits, like I say, were like, I drank from an early age. I remember being a freshman in high school and just being drunk as can be, getting picked up by friends on the side, older friends on the side of the road that kind of took care of me. And I was always that heavy drinker in every group that I went out with, and it just progressed over the years. I was always a big guy. Probably when I graduated high school, I was about 200 pounds, and I wasn't fat. I went to the gym, and I was a fairly solid guy. So I've always was a bigger guy, could hold a lot, and I was always the guy that stood out in any group I was drinking with. I always had to push it a little bit further. But yeah, it started back early on. I had a lot of blackout drinking throughout my years. I had the one thing that I'm actually more embarrassed about than anything else, just because it could have affected other people, is I drank and drove all the time. I had 3 DUIs over the course of many years. And yeah, I binge drank a lot. I binge drank a lot, and I would black out a lot. I remember one year, kind of during my peak of drinking, where I forget how I estimated this, but I estimated that I probably blacked out about 2/3 of the year, or like I would wake up with a blackout 2/3 of the morning. So yeah, when I would get into it, and when I say binge drinking, I'm not talking about like sometimes, and it's not good in any way, but they call this stuff, they talk about this binge drinking in college, and that's not really, come on, they call binge drinking if you go out and have 5 or 6 drinks in a night, binge drinking. I'm not even talking about where you're doing the party thing where you go out and, maybe 3 or 4 nights in a row you get drunk. even drunk enough to where you're hungover every morning. I'm talking about where you drink for 4 or 5 days solid. Like I would drink a lot of times, I'd get on a roll, the binge would start. I would drink till I passed out. I'd wake up in the morning and I'd have some booze on the side of the bed. And I'd take a shot of Jack Daniels to kind of even things out and take the edge off a little bit. Taking the edge off used to be one of my famous phrases. I was always taking the edge off. And I was always a little edgy because I was always either a little bit high or a little bit hungover, feeling a little bit bad. But yeah, I would do this for days and days. In fact, a number of times, including the very last time that I ever did this, after 4 or 5 days, a lot of times my body would just almost shut down and I'd be in the bed. I'd be under the covers, shaking, shakes, just like praying that I had a Valium, to kind of really take that edge off. I don't know if you've ever seen this old movie with Nicolas Cage, Leaving Las Vegas, where he goes to Las Vegas basically to commit suicide by drinking, but there's some pretty rough scenes in there, and I wasn't at that extent where my hands were just like this, but I could definitely relate. And I did this over the course of a lot of years. And did a lot of abuse on my body because, I graduated high school at 200 pounds. Well, I got in the gym and I beefed up, and it was weird in the 80s when I was in university. We were all going to the gym, but we're just trying to be as strong as we could. We weren't very healthy. God, I remember nights, and this is going to just make you turn your stomach. I'd go out and get drunk. I'd be about 225, 230 probably in those days, anywhere in there. I'd go out at night and just get drunk. 2 o'clock in the morning, I'd go to the A&P grocery store across the street, and I'd get like 2 pounds of steak and cook them up. So I was drinking, taking in horrid amounts of animal products all through college. Now, I had times, it was like I never had a problem walking away from the booze even for long periods of time. I always pulled myself back from the edge. I was never, and you know what? I think if I'd have crashed and burned really hard, or I think if I'd have bottomed out in a different sort of way, maybe I would have gotten away from that booze earlier. But I was always able to pull myself back, except for 1 or 2 situations. It never affected my work other than just being hung over as a rat. I remember working on the beach. I remember some nasty jobs working. I remember bartending, working in restaurants, having to go into work and just literally just feeling like ass all day long, like you were going to die. I worked on a beach, 90-something degrees. I'd go in hungover. So, yeah, I look back on those days and I literally cringe. But when I decided it was time, I could always stop. And I didn't have that, oh my God, I need that drink. I was able to just stop. And I would stop for periods of time. Many, many times I would and I would have this cycle though. I would tell myself, okay, you've been hitting it a little too hard, time to dry out. And I would easily dry out for, a month, 2 months at a time, with the thinking, okay, well now I'll come back to it and drink rationally. I won't get stupid like this. Now I've kind of cleaned myself out. I've gotten that out of my system. And now I'll be able to go out and maybe have a couple of glasses of wine or do this or that. And it would always last for a little while, but I just liked to drink. I never met alcohol I didn't like. I always kind of scoffed at these people that were like, oh yeah, I just can't drink this one. Well, no, I could drink everything, and I could drink it straight. In fact, I got into that macho stuff, that manly, being able to outdrink other people, being able to drink harder than other people. Like, if you mixed Coca-Cola with Jack Daniels in front of me, I would make fun of you endlessly because a man drank Jack Daniels straight, maybe with a splash of water, maybe with a rock of ice, but that was about it. So anyhow, we get to 30 years of this. Like I say, I was just getting to a point like, okay, let's see, 5 years ago, I would have been 47, almost about to turn 48. And coming to the end of 2011, I was just like, look, I've had enough. I've beat my body up. I'm tired of feeling bad. So I came into the end of 2011 saying, okay, this is going to change in 2012. I didn't do it like I didn't do the famous New Year's resolution and start on that day. I actually started 3 weeks later, and the last bender was a good one too. it was about 4 or 5 days, I ended up thinking I lost my computer and all my computer equipment here in Costa Rica, and was freaking out. Woke up, like I say, under the covers shaking, and then that was it. So what I did initially was, like I said, I came to this lifestyle. I kind of just fell into it. I had already started making a lot of health changes. I had already, then about the 3rd week of January of 2012, I decided, okay, I'm going to stop drinking, or I'm going to dry out. And I was going to do that again. So I dried out for 2 months. And in this 2 months, I was like really on the health thing, and that, which would eventually lead me to the raw vegan lifestyle. I would watch tons of videos, and I'd watch things just on general health at the time, on antioxidants, on my liver, and on cleansing my liver, and on repairing my liver, and on trying to undo some of this damage. I instinctually started moving away from animal products. I mean, that was always my instinct, without knowing anything, thinking anything, or trying to be vegan or raw vegan. I drastically reduced my animal products. Okay, but I wasn't on the raw vegan thing. I was just doing healthier. I was losing weight, getting healthier, eating lots more fruits and vegetables. About 2 months after I'd quit drinking, it was around my birthday. And then, I'm on this health journey and I'm exploring. Then I got on this kick and I said, well, a glass of red wine is good for you. And I said, I'm going to start having a glass of red wine every day. And I started having a glass of red wine every day, and I did. I held to it for 2 or 3 months. I had 1 glass of red wine in the evening and a little square of dark chocolate, because they always told you that was good for you. So then, I started having that. And then for probably the next 3 months, I did that. But I never got drunk again. I kept that under control. I had my 1 glass of wine a night. I think one time I went on a road trip, and maybe on that road trip, I had 2 or 3 drinks in that one night. Then we get to the point where I found out about raw veganism, and I really started cleaning out my body. And that was about June of 2017. And that's when I just said, hey, I just don't, this is a toxin. Alcohol's a toxin. It's a poison, whatever you want to call it. I'm never going to preach to other people, because other people don't have the problem with me, but I'm just like, I don't have a reason to use any of it in my body. I've put enough of that stuff into my body. I don't need the 1 glass here and there. That's it. And I walked away. So that's why when people ask me questions, I try to give, an encouraging answer or whatever. But if I'm dealing with people that I think have a problem with alcohol, I always want to try to be encouraging, never be, even though I haven't reached out, I didn't need that process. I mean, there's no shame in reaching out. There's lots of help out there. Do whatever you got to do to get off the bottle. That's why, or get off whatever substance you're on. I don't care about methods. I'm not, and once again, labels. I don't care your process, how you do it. If you abuse alcohol, or even just in general, if you don't abuse it, get rid of it completely, just because it's not necessary. But if you abuse it and you can't quit on your own, get some help. And most likely, if you've tried to quit multiple times, 20 of times, and you haven't been able to, you're most likely going to need some help, because I just like to think, okay, unless you're doing something differently, it's like with the food or whatever, unless you're doing something differently, you're just going to get the same results. And that's why, like I say, I'm just telling my story about it. I walked away. There's a bottle of vodka sitting in there right now. Sometimes people tell me I'm fooling myself. Sometimes people think, oh, you're going to eventually roll back on. I hate alcohol. I mean, I could sleep with alcohol on my bedstand at night. In fact, I get a little bit pissed off at myself. I get a little bit agitated, worked up sometimes when I just think of all the amount of time that I wasted on booze. And everybody goes, and I know, and I say that too, well, you can't go backwards, you can't dwell on it. But I'm a 53-year-old man, and that was 30 years of my life. And even every week, something else comes up into my head kind of new that makes me realize, oh yeah, I was held back in that area too. Oh, I didn't do this because of booze. Like, booze influenced so much of my life. So anyhow, that's my story. I was a drunk. I was a hardcore drunk. I don't consider myself an alcoholic, but the alcohol caused as much problems or more than it has if I had been an alcoholic. I mean, the wrecked cars, the DUIs, just all the problem, all the angst that I had, blackout, you don't remember what you do, you got to tiptoe around the next day apologizing to people. But Anyhow, just thought if anybody hadn't heard, and there's been people, kind of asking or, asking about alcohol, so I just thought I would update my story a little bit. Anyhow, if you guys enjoyed this one, please give me a thumbs up, and I will see you again tomorrow. Peace.